Cube as just a gangster rapper, but it turns out he really lived that life, and Suge Knight was one of the people who found out firsthand. I mean, this was the same Ice Cube that was not afraid to throw hands at a public convention. Anyway, from going toe-to-toe with Suge in a fistfight,
an Ice Cube fight. Also, I see a ruckus, and I just see, you know, Cube's throwing his fist. He wasn't punking out at all.
speaking his mind about how he really felt about him.
If he didn't know he got poked, then the conspiracy lives on.
Would you put it past
I'll
Suge?
push as nobody.
People might think Ice Cube was just another rapper acting tough, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Cube wasn't just talking about the streets. He came straight from them and carried that energy everywhere he went. Even Suge Knight, one of the most feared and ruthless men in hip-hop, learned real quick that Cube wasn't the one to play with. This wasn't some studio gangster. This was a man who meant every word he said.
They was not scared of Suge Knight. They was terrified of Suge Knight.
Right.
I mean, terrified.
I know.
No, to death.
This was the same Ice Cube who once threw hands in public without a second thought. From squaring up with Suge Knight in a real fight to standing tall against anyone who tried to test him, Cube always had that fearless fire in him. He didn't walk around pretending. He lived like someone who truly wasn't afraid of anything. Now let's dive in. Ice Cube versus Suge Knight. Everyone in the rap game knew Suge was the boogeyman of hip-hop. People didn't just respect him, they feared him. His name carried weight like a curse. Whisper it too loud and trouble might follow. But Cube, he wasn't shaking, not one bit. Over the years, critics tried to clown him, saying Cube was just acting gangster for fame. But those who really knew him, they knew better. He came from the same blocks that shaped some of the realest legends out there.
Was heavy on drugs, went around to my house and gave my mother some cockamamie story. So she gave him $20.
The only difference, Cube was smart enough to make it out alive while staying solid. And when Cube told stories from his early days, you could feel how real it was. Like the time a local hustler came to his mom's house and lied to her just to snatch 20 bucks. When Cube found out, he and his homie were heated. They grabbed their straps and went straight to the dude's spot, ready to handle it. But when they pulled up, guess what? The man wasn't even home.
And I was so mad. You violated me and my family. Me and my friends was going around the corner to kill him. And he wasn't home, so thank God.
Looking back, Cube said that day changed everything. He admitted straight up, if that man had been home, he might have never become the Ice Cube we know today. Missing him that night wasn't luck, it was fate. Cube always said that was the moment that probably saved his life, because if things went left, he could have ended up another name lost to the streets. A big reason Cube didn't get stuck in that trap was his father, unlike a lot of his homies who didn't have that guidance.
We were young and we was mad and we had a weapon and it was gonna happen. So it would have been stupid and I wouldn't be sitting here if it did happen.
Cube had a strong dad who kept him focused, disciplined, and hungry for something greater. That solid foundation, plus his gift for storytelling through music, became his way out. But don't get it twisted. Leaving the block didn't make Cube soft. That same tough edge stayed burning inside him. And that's exactly why when Suge Knight tried to step up, Cube didn't back down for a second. DJ Premier once revealed the wild moment when Cube and Suge faced off eye to eye. And trust, this wasn't some small back and forth. This was serious tension, the kind that could have gone bad real quick.
Grew up in a pretty tough neighborhood, but nobody was tougher than my father, so it was a sense of security.
It all went down not long after Cube left NWA, right when Suge Knight was already building his rep as the most dangerous man in the music game. But according to DJ Premier, Cube didn't flinch, not once, not even standing inches away from Suge Knight himself. That speaks volumes, because back then, nobody wanted smoke with Suge. People in the industry were scared to even breathe wrong around him, and that fear wasn't for nothing.
Did you really see Suge and Ice Cube fight? Also, I see a ruckus, and I just see, you know, Cube's throwing his fist. He wasn't punking out at all.
Suge wasn't just making threats, he was living them. He was running with real muscle, putting pressure on rappers and making sure anyone who crossed him paid for it. Just ask Jerry Heller. He'll tell you exactly how cold Suge could get. Heller, who played a major role in NWA's come up, once flat out called Suge pure evil, and he meant every word. During the infamous standoff over Dr. Dre's contract, Mob James, one of Suge's top enforcers, said they rolled up demanding Dre's freedom from Ruthless Records.
And literally terrorizing his enemies.
Suge Knight is a mythical figure.
The controversial CEO of Death Row Records.
The most feared figure in all of hip-hop.
His size was intimidating.
Knight had been on probation for a 1992 assault on 2 aspiring rappers.
Heller looked like he'd seen a ghost, frozen solid with fear. But that wasn't even the end of it. Soon after, Heller's house got broken into. Things were stolen. But what really messed with him was what the intruders left behind. When Jerry Heller found that message spray painted right across his mirror, it sent chills down his spine. Nobody could ever prove Suge's crew did it, but in Heller's mind, there was no doubt. That moment messed him up bad. He got so paranoid that just hearing Suge's name made him twitch. Albert Hughes, one of the directors behind Menace II Society, once shared a wild story that shows just how deep the fear ran.
Look at Suge Knight as an infection.
Well, Suge Knight is just evil, and that's what evil does.
He said that when he and his brother joked about Suge's name in front of Jerry, Heller completely snapped, he freaked out, and actually pulled a gun on Albert's brother. That's how shaken he was. And crazy part is, Heller wasn't the only one living like that. Suge had the whole industry walking on eggshells, keeping folks in line through straight-up intimidation. He didn't need to say much, just showing up was enough to make people back down. But Ice Cube, he wasn't built to fold under pressure. Cube was cut from a different kind of steel, the kind that doesn't bend no matter who's in front of him. He wasn't about to bow to Suge or anyone. Cube had already proven his backbone time and time again. He was the type who stood tall even when the room got dangerous. And trust
This was vandalized. Your life was threatened.
Right.
What were some of the incidents today? I mean, didn't you come home one time and found out your house was broken into?
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff missing, and on the wall was spray painted, on the mirror in one of the bedrooms was spray painted, "Payback's a motherfucker, Jerry," or "Payback's a bitch, Jerry." You know, one of those.
His run-ins with Suge Knight weren't the only times he had smoke. His beef with Above the Law showed that Cube never hesitated to stand 10 toes down when it came to respect. After Cube left NWA, Eazy-e went and signed a new gangster rap group from Pomona called Above the Law. And just like that, the tension torch got passed down. These new recruits naturally inherited the feud with Cube, and it didn't take long for things to start heating up. By 1990, Above the Law was buzzing, pushing their debut album, Living Like Hustlers. But the real fire started after an LA Times interview that April. One of the members, KMG, threw slick shade at Cube, questioning if he was really about that street life. He basically said Cube's so-called hardcore lyrics were just stories inspired by their lifestyle, not his own.
You know, I always felt that that Suge had something to do with it.
KMG didn't hold back. He said straight up that Cube was just rapping about the streets, not living them. Now, Cube wasn't the type to lose his cool over words, but he sure wasn't letting that disrespect slide. He fired back with a cold-cutting response that had everyone talking. Cube said, "New dudes from Pomona should only talk about the 10 freeway," a slick jab aimed right at their hometown. That line hit like a punch. It was sharp, disrespectful, and made the tension between them official. When that LA Times interview hit the streets, Eazy-e didn't waste a second stirring things up. He picked up the phone and called Code 187 the frontman of Above the Law, asking, "Did you read the paper?" The moment 187 saw the article, he was fuming. He told Eazy straight up, "I'm gonna put hands on Cube." Eazy tried to talk him down, but 187 wasn't hearing none of that. And guess what? He didn't even have to wait long to back up those words. That same night, April 7th, 1990, Above the Law was headlining a show at the Anaheim Celebrity Theater, and by pure chance, Ice Cube was there too.
Me and Cube had some issues. He disrespected Pomona. Me and him got into a head-up scrap. Spilled over to the New Music Seminar.
When the two crossed paths backstage, tension instantly filled the air. Words got sharp, stares got cold, and then boom, fists started flying. It turned into a wild brawl, but Cube didn't back down one bit. Word spread fast that he stood his ground and held his own against 187. By that point, Cube wasn't rolling solo anymore. After walking away from NWA, he had built his own crew, Da Lynch Mob. And these weren't just rappers trying to look tough. These were real street soldiers mixed with strong-minded activists, guys who carried both brains and backbone. You did not want to test them. So when Da Lynch Mob and Above the Law crossed paths again a few months later, this time at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square during the 1990 New Music Seminar, you already know it didn't stay peaceful. Cube had stepped away to speak on a panel, but his crew was still holding down the lobby. A few words got thrown, tempers flared, and just like that, another fight broke out. And this wasn't no small scuffle. It was a full-blown melee that had everyone in that hotel knowing one thing for sure: Cube's camp was not to be messed with. After that, Cube made it clear he was over the back and forth. He didn't need to prove anything anymore. His rep spoke for itself. But just when one storm cooled down, another one started brewing. Because a few years later, Cube found himself caught up in a brand new hip-hop clash, this time with none other than Common.
We had an interview with LA Times. What signatures y'all music and everything. So like we talk about like, you know, what we really was involved with or our colleagues.
When Common dropped his track, I Used to Love H.E.R., it shook the whole rap world. The song became the standout from his second album, Resurrection, and man, it hit deep. The track was poetic, raw, and full of meaning. Common compared his love for hip-hop to falling for a woman. He painted this beautiful, emotional story about being drawn to her soul, her realness, her natural energy. It wasn't a diss record at first glance. It was art. But in a game full of pride and competition, those heartfelt lyrics were about to set off another unforgettable beef. As Common's verses unfolded, the big reveal hit. The girl he was rapping about was hip-hop itself. The track instantly clicked with rap fans, especially those on the East Coast who hadn't been too hyped about Common's first album.
Ice Cube that went away to college and come back and act like this big-time gangster in NWA, which at the time, that's what he was. You know, he was a dude that was really sharp with the pen, was kind of a schoolboy, you know, never hustled the street, never banged in the streets.
When he spit, when I was 10 years old, what I loved most, she had so much soul, people felt that. It was raw emotion mixed with lyrical brilliance, and fans couldn't get enough of it. But while East Coast listeners were vibing with the track, not everyone was celebrating. The song wasn't just a love letter to hip-hop, it was also a reality check. Common painted this vivid picture of how the culture had shifted from something pure and creative to something more commercial, flashy, and gangster-focused. And guess who didn't take that message too kindly? Ice Cube. To Cube, it sounded like Common was throwing slick shade at the West Coast, like he was saying the West had turned hip-hop into a violent, money-hungry industry. And back in the 90s, when the West Coast was dominating the game, that kind of jab didn't go unnoticed. Cube took it personal, real personal. King T later pointed out that Cube's fiery verse on Mac 10's West Side Slaughterhouse was actually a direct response to Common's I Used to Love H.E.R. The track featured Cube and WC, and Cube came in hard, making one thing clear: nobody was going to disrespect the West on his watch. His verse carried that signature Ice Cube bite, raw, confident, and unfiltered. But Common wasn't the type to back down either. He clapped back with one of the coldest diss tracks of the era, The Bitch in You, and man, it was brutal. Common came out swinging with bars like went from Gangsta to Islam to the D of Das EFX. Then he doubled down with one of the hardest lines of the whole beef.
LA Times wanted to reply to that. On the interview, he said New Jack Pomona should only talk about the freeway because that's the only thing that's going through that mother. Eazy-e called me. He said, hey man, did you get the LA Times? I said, no, man, you gotta see it. He laughing on the phone. He's a big joke, so he laughing, ah! So I get it, I read the statement.
Hypocrite, I'm filling out your death certificate, slinging bean pies and St. Ides in the same sentence. With that verse, Common hit deep. He was calling Cube out for preaching Nation of Islam values while still promoting street life and alcohol. It was a bold move, the kind that could have sparked something way bigger. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about rhymes anymore. This was a clash of beliefs, pride, and coast-to-coast respect. And to seal the deal, Common delivered the ultimate mic drop moment. He flipped Ice Cube's own lyrics right back at him. That move was legendary. It was one of the boldest plays ever seen in a rap beef, and it left everyone's jaw on the floor. For Ice Cube, this was unfamiliar ground. He wasn't used to being on the receiving end of lyrical smoke. Cube had built his entire reputation as one of the coldest, most fearless diss masters in the game. His track, No Vaseline, had already gone down in history as one of the most savage takedowns hip-hop had ever seen. When Cube dissed someone, it wasn't just words, it was demolition. Producer Doug Infinite once said, if you're gonna come at Cube lyrically, you better come correct, or he's gonna body you. And Common knew that better than anyone. He understood the risk, but he also trusted his pen. He believed he could stand toe-to-toe with one of rap's sharpest minds. Turns out, Cube wasn't just sitting quiet either. He later revealed that he actually had a diss track locked and loaded, ready to clap clap back at Common, but fate had a different plan. Before Cube could release it, tragedy struck the hip-hop world twice. In 1996, Tupac Shakur was killed.
I called E back and said, I'm your boy up. You know, as soon as I said, oh, cuz, don't be tripping. I said, man, that. Real, homie.
And just months later, in 1997, the notorious B.I.G. was gone too. Those losses hit the culture hard. The tension, the violence, it had all gone too far. The game was mourning, and people were finally realizing that the beefs and bloodshed weren't worth it anymore. Then, on April 3rd, 1997, less than a month after Biggie's passing, Minister Louis Farrakhan stepped in. He hosted a historic peace summit at the Nation of Islam's headquarters in Chicago, bringing together some of the biggest names in hip-hop.
So he come, made a meet up in the hallway, said, what's up that? She said, newspaper. You trying to play me like a bust or something, homie? Like, oh, you a dude. Like I said, what's happening? You want to get down?
It was a powerful moment, a call to unity, to end the chaos that had divided the culture for years. And guess who showed up? Ice Cube and Common, face to face. What could have turned into another dangerous rivalry instead turned into a moment of peace. The two men squashed it right then and there, showing that even the hardest beefs can be settled when real life starts hitting too close to home. But long before all that, Cube had already survived one of the nastiest and most iconic feuds in rap history, his fallout with NWA. Fans know that story by heart. Cube left the group back in 1989 over money issues. He was heated because he felt he wasn't being paid fairly for all the writing he did on Straight Outta Compton. That split got messy fast. It wasn't just business, it turned personal, and the drama didn't stay confined to the crew either. Things were about to explode on a whole new level.
So he come back into my dressing room and say, what's up? As soon as he say, what's up? I give it to him, a two-piece hot one. Boom, he fall through the door.
That feud didn't just stay between Cube and NWA. It started pulling in people who had nothing to do with their money drama. One of those caught in the middle was TV host Dee Barnes, who found herself right in the middle of hip-hop history's storm. Dee was the host of Pump It Up, a hit hip-hop show on Fox that gave fans exclusive interviews, behind-the-scenes stories, and spotlight moments with the biggest names in rap. Ironically, her name would later live on in Eminem's Guilty Conscience, where he referenced the infamous Dr. Dre incident. But before that happened, Dee was already part of the NWA circle. She'd interviewed them multiple times, built good vibes with the crew, and had no reason to think anything could go left.
So Cube didn't back down either.
No, he didn't.
He didn't back
down. He got socked out, but he didn't back down. He got socked out, but he didn't back down.
But once Cube left NWA, things started to get messy. The group came back hard with their track 100 Miles and Running, throwing sharp shots at Cube and making it clear they weren't letting him walk away quietly. So when Dee booked NWA for another Pump It Up interview to promote their new music, she had no idea that tension was about to spill out in front of the cameras. According to Dee herself, the energy was thick from the start. Every question she asked turned into another jab at Ice Cube. The guys couldn't let it go. It got so heated that the producers had to slice out whole sections of the interview just to make it clean enough for TV. But here's where everything flipped. When the episode finally aired, the editors decided to spice it up. They added a second segment filmed earlier on the Boys in the Hood set featuring Ice Cube and rapper Yo-Yo. And that's when things took a wild turn. Nobody expected what happened next. Cube crashed that interview. He jumped in and used that moment to clap back at NWA right there on camera. He flipped their own lyrics against them, firing off slick disses that hit hard and left everyone stunned. Cube turned what was supposed to be a regular interview into straight up TV gold. It was cold, it was fearless, and it pushed the feud with his old crew to a whole new level. After that episode aired, the tension between Cube and NWA wasn't just about music anymore. It was personal, raw, and public for the whole world to see.
And when we get to New York, so all the stuff going around the seminars like, oh yeah, the lynch mob here, and they got issues, whatever, right?
To make things even worse, Ice Cube didn't stop there. He threw in a few extra verbal punches, even taking shots at the DOC, who was tight with Dr. Dre and had just survived a near-fatal car crash that left his voice permanently damaged. That jab crossed some serious lines, and even Dee Barnes later admitted she didn't think that clip should have ever aired. But she was only the host, not the editor. She had no control over how the final version went out to the world. When the episode finally dropped, the editing made everything explode. The producers played Cube's fiery interview right after NWA's segment, making it look like a back-to-back lyrical showdown. And then after Cube's segment wrapped up, Dee casually looked into the camera and said, I always seem to be in the middle of controversy. It was probably just a harmless throwaway line, her trying to keep things cool and professional. But the way it was edited made it look like she was stirring the pot on purpose. That final cut painted D like she was trying to fuel the beef between Cube and NWA, even though she had nothing to do with it. And months later, that misleading edit came back to haunt her in the worst possible way. D crossed paths with Dr. Dre again at a Def Jam Records party. And that's when everything spiraled completely out of control. According to journalist Alan Light's Rolling Stone report, beating up the charts, a drunk Dr. Dre spotted D at the event, and all that bottled up anger from the Pump It Up episode came boiling to the surface. Witnesses said Dre snapped, he grabbed D by the hair and slammed her head and body against a wall near the stairs multiple times. It was a violent, terrifying scene that left everyone in shock. People nearby said Dre's bodyguard even pulled a gun on the crowd to stop anyone from stepping in to help. Dre then tried to shove her down the stairs, and when that didn't work, he reportedly kicked her in the ribs and arms before she managed to break free and run into the women's restroom, but the nightmare didn't end there.
I had a record, man, that was a killer. And then we ended up having this summit with Farrakhan.
Oh.
He helped us squash it.
Mm-hmm.
He helped us squash it, so I just never did my record.
You recorded it?
No, I had the lyrics.
Dre followed her inside, grabbed her by the hair again, and punched her several more times in the back of the head before D finally escaped. It was a horrifying assault that sent shockwaves through the entire music industry. But what made it even more disturbing was how people around Dre reacted afterward. Instead of showing concern or remorse, some of NWA's members actually spoke openly about it in interviews, and their comments were chilling. MC Ren coldly said, "She deserved it." Eazy-e doubled down saying, "Yeah, she had it coming." And Dre himself, he didn't sound the least bit remorseful. In one interview, when asked about it, he brushed it off and said, "People talk all this ish, but you know, somebody messes with me," before trailing off. That response and the silence that followed from much of the industry showed how twisted things had gotten behind the scenes back then. It was one of the darkest moments tied to the NWA legacy, and it exposed a side of fame and power that many wish had never come to light. Dre's cold words still echoed in the air when he said, "I'm gonna mess with them, I just did. It ain't nothing you can do now by talking about it." That statement hit hard. It showed just how unapologetic he was at the time. After the attack, D. Barnes filed a massive $22.75 million lawsuit against Dr. Dre for the assault, but the case was quietly settled out of court. Even though the legal drama faded from the headlines, the damage was already done. The whole incident became one of the darkest moments in early 90s hip-hop, a brutal reminder of how ego, violence, and unchecked rage could destroy lives during what was supposed to be rap's golden era. But while that storm was settling, another one was starting to form around Ice Cube. This time, the drama came from an unexpected place: his wild feud with Cypress Hill. And believe it or not, it all started over what should have been a simple movie soundtrack deal. When Cube was putting together the soundtrack for his classic film Friday, he wanted that West Coast sound to match the movie's chill, street vibe. So he reached out to Cypress Hill to contribute a track, and they delivered. The group came through with Roll It Up, Light It Up, Smoke It Up, a song that fit perfectly with the movie's laid-back, smoky energy. Everything seemed solid on the surface. Good music, good vibes, but behind the scenes, things were already heating up. According to Be Real from Cypress Hill, the real problem started when Cube stopped by their studio one day to check out potential tracks for the Friday soundtrack. While they were chilling, the Cypress crew played him a few unreleased songs from their upcoming album Temples of Boom. They were just vibing, artists sharing music, no tension in the room. But what came next would flip that whole friendship upside down. The crowd went absolutely wild. Cameras flashed nonstop, fans screamed, and within hours, that photo of Solo holding Ice Cube's chain spread like wildfire across the city. It was the kind of image that had everyone talking. Barbershops, radio shows, and every corner of the West Coast buzzing with rumors and opinions. But eventually, the chaos calmed down. The tension between both camps finally cooled off, and after all the drama, they decided to bury the hatchet for good. What started as a simple collaboration had turned into one of hip-hop's most explosive feuds, filled with pride, betrayal, and street respect. Yet in the end, both sides found peace, closing the book on one of the West Coast's wildest rivalries. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and share it with your crew. Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories and real hip-hop history. See you in the next one.